Do you need to be a certain level of good looking to succeed with pickup, to succeed with approaching women in real life? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. You do need to have a certain level. Now, what I've heard people in the black pill say is you have to be in the top 25% or the top 10% to have success. That's not true. I have seen with my own two eyes plenty of guys who are not the top 10%, not Chads or Chad Lights or whatever, who have success. But is there a minimum threshold to where if you're below that, it's going to be a real struggle? Yes, absolutely. That exists. Now, I would say, and I'm someone who has a very unique experience because I take guys in real life and coach them and show them how to approach women. And I see the kind of reactions they get. I see the results that guys of every different background get. So I have a very good idea of what is possible, of what kind of guy can succeed and what kind of guy is really going to struggle. I would say it's somewhere around the bottom 10%, maybe bottom 5% where it's a real struggle. Now, those guys can still get success, but it's like substantially harder, right? It takes a lot more approaches, a lot more effort, a lot more other things to get success. It's harder. Now, the bottom 10%, for the most part, means you're obese. For the most part. It means you are legitimately obese, right? Like actually obese, not just overweight. I've been 40 pounds overweight and I was still crushing it. But I mean obese. Or let's say you're in horrible shape and you're extremely short. You're like 5'2" and you're in really bad shape. Well, then it's going to be extremely difficult. So that threshold definitely exists. The vast majority of guys, if you are in decent shape, not even amazing shape, just decent enough shape, just not massively overweight, and you approach enough women, you will be able to have regular success. Do looks make a difference? They mostly make a difference for people that are outside the bell curve. So the guys that are in the top 1% of good looking, right? The guys that are 6'4", they're super, they have model facial features, they're ripped. Is it way easier for them? Yes, absolutely. It is. Most guys, though, are not on that side of the bell curve. They're not on the bottom side of the bell curve. And they're irrelevant. Thinking about them is so stupid. It's like being born in America and you think about how some people are born multimillionaires to multimillionaire families and how it's harder for you to be a multimillionaire. What is that going to do to your mindset? It's going to be so much harder to get yourself to take action because you feel like a victim compared to this person who has it easier. They do have it easier. It is harder for you. But does that mean it's impossible for you? No. And that's a nuance that people want to avoid because it's so much easier to tell yourself a victim story than to say, look, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm somewhere in the middle where it doesn't make that much of a difference. If you're an outlier, it makes a big difference. If you're in the top 1%, bottom 1%, it makes a huge difference. But if you're anywhere in the middle, your looks are not that huge of a factor. And I've seen many, many guys in that range pull models, pull threesomes, pull hot girls every week, etc., etc. So if you're in the normal range, is it harder for you than a Chad? Yes. Of course it is. Just like it's harder for me to become a multimillionaire than it is for someone who is born to super rich parents. But if I spend my days watching videos about how it's hard for me because I'm not super rich, how I shouldn't try, how I should just give up, how I should feel sorry for myself, what am I going to do? Am I going to do better? Am I going to take action? Am I going to reach my potential despite my potential maybe being lower than that person with those unfair advantages? No, I'm going to settle for mediocrity at best. And I'm saying this as someone who is legitimately, I was born to a very poor family. Both my parents made barely above minimum wage. My dad, while I was in high school, lived in a trailer that was the side trailer to his grandparents' trailer. So my great-grandparents, they lived in a shitty trailer, and he lived with me in the trailer by that trailer that was smaller, that had a black and white 10-inch TV when I was about the ages like 14 through 17. That was my situation. I was born extremely poor. Now I'm in the top like 2.5%. I did the math. And that wasn't even that hard. That took me 10 to 20 hours of work for a couple years to get to six figures. But the thing is, I inundated my mindset with thinking about all the reasons that I would be able to succeed. I told myself that I'm extremely intelligent. I told myself that this was easy and that I would succeed. And that just 10, 100x's your chances of success. You start looking for opportunities instead of looking for excuses. And that's exactly what happened to me. And to be completely frank, I could be far richer than I am if I worked harder. I could be a multimillionaire by now. I'm pretty confident in saying that because I got to where I am with 10 to 20 hours of work per week. If I worked 60 hours, I would almost certainly be a multimillionaire by now. But if I spent all that time thinking about how hard it is, watching videos about why you shouldn't try, why it's the government's fault, etc., I would be making the same amount of money that my father was making. So yes, if you're obese, if you're extremely short and out of shape, if you're in the bottom 5%, the vast majority of people who are in that situation, they can get out of it. The vast majority of people can at least get into that large part of the bell curve where most people are, unless you're an extreme genetic outlier. Now, those do exist. And if you're in that situation, that's when, like, I don't know, moving to the Philippines or using money and doing the sugar daddy website or things of that nature, that's where the black pill advice, a lot of it starts to make more sense. That's where I would agree with a lot of that advice for people in those situations. But you got to do a little bit to try to get out of that. Get into good shape first. Wear shoes that increase your height by a couple inches. Do those things, and most people are at least going to be able to get into the middle of the bell curve to where they can have real success without it taking some extreme, insane amount of effort.